Hello and welcome to a conversation on the Daily Burn. I'm your host, Eric Miller, joined by an awesome progressive from the great state of Georgia, a fierce and fiery progressive, I like to say, Tamara Johnson-Shealey. How you doing, Tamara?
Hi, Eric. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for talking to me. You're running for the U.S. Senate from the great state of Georgia. You had previously run for a state Senate seat a couple times, which I'll ask you about that. But now you're running for, I guess it's Kelly Loeffler is leaving, thankfully. And there's, I think there's about 72 candidates running for that one, right? I did have the professor Richard Dean Winfield on earlier. He's he's a brilliant dude. So it's cool when races have like multiple progressive options. You know what I mean? So I didn't, I'm not trying to show any favoritism or anything like that. I think you're both stellar, kind of in different ways. And God, imagine we had multiple progressives on every ticket, and that was our problem, right? So So anyway, enough of my yak, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about your platform. Let me ask first about those state Senate races, like how, what inspired you to run through those races and persist? I think you ran 2 or 3 times, and now running 3 times, and now running for the federal office. I mean, that takes some drive, my friend. That what keeps you motivated? Nevertheless, she persisted. Tell me about your drive.
Yeah, so I come from the beauty and barber industry. So those of you that don't know, I was actually a salon owner for 10 years. I actually did services for 18. And I started watching my industry politically. And people don't know that the hair on your head and all these personal care services, there's politics and policy behind all of it. And I started watching my industry politically, which led me to watch my community, my state, and I started watching nationally. And I'm like, oh my God, everything is political. That became the fire that really sparked my interest in politics and what the heck is going on and how do we fix this?
Right on. And how about the jump from running for, I guess it was Georgia District 40 to obviously the scope of running statewide is significantly more massive. That had to be daunting. How are you approaching it? What have you learned from the state level races that you've applied to the statewide race?
Yeah. So here's the deal. I came out of the gate in 2014, no name candidate, and I ran against Senator Fran Miller. This man was a staunch Republican. This was a red district. Republicans couldn't get more than 20%, 20 some odd percent against this man. And I said, and everybody seemed to be afraid of him. He was like a tyrant. Like everybody was afraid of this man. I'm like, I'm not scared of him. So I came out of the gate, no name candidate, no money, 37% against Senator Fran Miller. Now I lost, right? But I'm telling you, I felt like a winner because nobody could get beyond 20-some odd percent. So I knew I had to run again. Got back in this race, 2016, 43.8%. I knew I had him. I knew I had him. One more run, I had him. I knew it. Then that's when I found out how the inner workings of the Democratic Party. Like I got a rude awakening, a slap in the face, in the butt, because a white woman, someone got her to run, and she ran against me. And because the district is predominantly white, it's more affluent, and she looks more like the district, they said that she was more electable. And not only did people that supported me for 2 election cycles and had no reason to not support me for a 3rd run, supported her. And I have some really wonderful white allies that came to me and told me what was being said about me in the district. And they made it clear that they weren't going to vote for me, a Black woman, over this white woman. So it became very racial. It was so ugly. And the Democratic Party here in Georgia, there were Democrats that actually supported her in my face in a primary. And that's when I saw how the Democratic Party worked. And I'm like, I knew I didn't fit, but I knew I really didn't fit inside that establishment structure. So she ended up winning in 2018, and she beat me in the primary. And she went on to win the general. She rode Stacey Abrams' coattail because Stacey drove the Black vote. This candidate didn't have to have any agenda for people of color, she didn't have to speak specifically to Black people. She didn't have to talk. She just had to show up. Because Stacey was driving the Black vote. She'd already had the white vote, and she now sits in the Georgia State Senate. But God had a bigger plan for me. I went back to, put it in my spirit to go back to school. So I went to law school. I got accepted to Emory University, went to law school. Now I have a master's degree in law. And I felt called again to get back into a bigger race. So when Johnny Isaacson became ill and Kelly Loeffler was appointed by Georgia's our governor here, we knew she wasn't. I knew she wasn't going to stay long, and I'm going to take her out. That seed is mine.
Awesome. Let me ask. Can I ask a few questions about what you just said there? That, I mean, first off, I mean, Democrats aren't racist, only Republicans are, right? We all know that. Wink, wink, right?
Wink.
Right. So, boy, I'm glad that you shared that. I'm glad that you speak out about that, because that's, that's a misconception, or that's we always think, this side's the good guys and that side's the bad guys, but it's not so black and white, if you will, right? So I'm glad that you speak out. I hate that you had that experience, but I'm glad that you speak out about it. The first two races that you ran, did you have party support?
Kinda.
Right.
And I say kinda because they knew I was a progressive. They knew that, I was a little different. I don't necessarily toe the line. I do. I have an opinion. So they kinda.
Right. I got you. And there are some districts that they don't even. It sounds like this might have been one that they don't even bother trying to compete in. Right. So if you're coming from the outside, they're not, like you said, in the third race, you're not the one that they're propping up or, putting into the race. So, I'm not surprised to hear that answer. And I'm sure you're being polite about kind of.
I'm trying.
Yeah. Well, again, thanks for speaking up about that. And, the perception is that, racism, the roots of racism are deep in Georgia, right? So I'm guessing that's not a misperception. Is that a fair statement, I guess?
Yeah, I believe that I'm a Georgia native. So we're rooted pretty deeply here in Georgia. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which brings me to one thing on your policy platform. So you are progressive, and I kind of want to go down you kind of tick all the Bernie boxes: Medicare for all, environmental justice, social justice, living wage, women's rights, et cetera, right? And we'll get into a bunch of those. But the one that you have on your platform, and it's the first one listed, which signifies it's the most important one, is you want to establish a federal agency for American descendants of slavery, which is ADOS, right? Can you talk about? And I don't think there's anybody in the Senate or in the House that's necessarily pushing for anything like that, right? There's, so let's talk about that, and I'll probably have a bunch of questions. So, what does that mean? What does that federal agency mean? What would it do?
Can we go back to ADOS first, so I can at least explain what that is before I go into the intricacies?
Yes.
So ADOS, it stands for American Descendants of Slavery, the system of slavery, this systemic injustices that have been done to Black people in this country, the way America has built its wealth off the free labor of enslaved Africans. We are the descendants of slavery in this country. America still owes that debt. That is a debt that is owed to generations of people. And it goes from slavery to Black codes, to Jim Crow, to convict leasing, no Green New Deal, no GI Bill, redlining, war on drugs, mass incarceration. We know the injustices that have been done to us and in our inability to build generational wealth. I bought a home before my mother. Let me say that again. I bought a home before my mother. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about the repair and the redress that needs to happen with Black America, we're right now, let's just look around. We're in the middle of the next civil rights movement with this ADOS movement, but we're also on the verge of a civil war. Black Lives Matter, I see it right behind you. It is now, it is on the forefront, it is in your face. We have been saying this for hundreds and hundreds of years, and now it honestly becomes the responsibility of our white allies to get ahead of us, to get in front of us, to speak for us, to fight with us. I mean, there's really no argument for the what needs to happen. We are, like I said, I bought a home before my mother.
Yeah,
that says a whole lot. I remember the outhouse. My aunt that had. I know slavery, and I shouldn't. I'm 48 years old. I should not know slavery, but I remember the outhouse. I remember my family not having a bathroom. My aunt and her husband, they did not have a bathroom. I remember that. I remember my family not wearing shoes. I remember the tobacco truck that would come around and our family would jump on the back of the truck to go pick tobacco. I remember this at 48 years old. So when you talk about Georgia being still deeply rooted in racism, these things still existed when I was a little girl, and to a certain extent still exist today.
right.
So when we talk about the reparations, Black people, white America has 10 times more wealth. The racial wealth gap is real, and you know it. We all know it. White America has 10 times more wealth than Black America.
Yeah, I just want to chime in real quick. It hasn't narrowed since 1962 was I saw that number, and that's pre Dr. King. That's pre 2 terms of Obama. That's insane. That's heartbreaking. So I just wanted to point out that date, to bolster your point.
Yeah.
Please continue.
And that shows what hasn't happened.
Right.
In 50 years, 60 years. That shows what hadn't happened. Nothing has happened. As a matter of fact, the data shows that by 2053, Black America will have zero net wealth. Let me say that one more time. By 2053, Black America will have zero net wealth. And this generation is woke. We're woke. We're not our ancestors. We're like this generation. These are warriors. They're like, no, we're not going out like this. So when I talk about establishing the federal agency, it's like akin to the VA, but we call this the RA, the Reparations Administration. My undergrad is in computer information systems, and I'd like to create the infrastructure that houses how we actually how the reparations happens. I want to create the agency itself. This work has already, when we talk about HR 40, that's over in Congress now. That's a study. Dr. Sandy Darity. If you haven't heard of him, I would encourage your audience to look him up. Dr. Sandy Darity, D-A-R-I-T-Y, just wrote a book, From Here to Equality. He's been doing this. He's an economist at Duke University. He's been doing this for well over 30 years. The work has been done. There's other economists that have done this work. The studies are done.
Right.
Implementation now is what needs to happen. So this federal agency, I do talk about, first of all, we got to know who ADOS is, right? So inside of this federal agency, we'll collect, manage, and maintain our database. I would never want to put a database of this magnitude in the hands of any state. First of all, we know what Georgia does with data. I mean, they purge voters. They do whatever they want with voter rolls here. So I would never want to see this kind of data be in the hands of any state. So we would have a registry, a database that says, who are these descendants of slavery? We're not a lost people. We were property. So they know, America knows. We know who we are, and America knows who we are. It just needs to be somewhere collected. So we'll collect this database, and we will have an agency that will, I talk about cash payments. America owes Black America. Guess what happens to that money, Eric? It goes right back into the economy.
Of course it does.
So I'm thinking, why would America not want to? Why not reparations? The money will have to go back to the economy, whether it be people fixing up their homes, buying homes, whatever. It's going to go right back into the economy. It's not like Black America is going to take this money and stuff it in a mattress and they'll never see it again. No, it'll be spent. It'll be right back into the economy.
Yeah. It was striking to me. One of the key moments in the presidential cycle was on the debate stage, Marianne Williamson saying it so directly, it is a debt owed, right? And, people kind of dismissed her, whatever, she has her story to tell, but, that's never been said on the debate stage, right? And she was not, Cory Booker didn't say it, right? You know, she's the one that said it. Kamala Harris didn't say it. She's the one that said it, right? And it was just so powerful. And like you know, I never really thought about that point that you just said about the studies that have been done, right? It's the same tactic they used for legalization, right? Well, we have to, hey, slow down. We have to study marijuana and its effects. Like, the studies have been done, right? It's just it's a delay tactic, right? So, you know, that what is it? HR 40 is a bit of a placebo, right? It's a bit of a, you know, a smoke screen to actually getting to progress. Is there anybody in elected office that's driving this currently?
No.
Yeah.
And you know, to say the word Black, and you know, that's taboo. Like, ooh, black. I mean, you can't talk about Black and Black people. You know, Kamala, she scares me because she was asked specifically about what she would do for Black America, and she made the comment that she wouldn't, and laughed about it. Like, I'm not gonna do anything just for Black people. Like, her little comment scares me. She scares me. I want her to fix that.
Yeah. Anything?
Eric, I want you to just say it, Eric. Just say it.
Well, I mean, I don't want to move on from this. Is there anything else? You know, I think it's super important, and we need more voices, you know, lifted, talking about this, fighting this fight, right, and cutting through the bullshit of, you know, HR 40, right? So, you know, is there anything else about this? Let me approach it like this. You know, what are the standard pushbacks are, you know, white people will say, well, I didn't own slaves, blah, 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 right? You know, so, you know, what are the standard pushbacks, and how do you not that you need to, right? But how do you answer those? Again, you don't need to, but.
No, and you know what? I'm telling you, they're coming out of the woodworks now that I talk so boldly about it, you know? And I guess I'm so happy when it's people like you, Eric, and I host a internet broadcast every Saturday with a white gentleman. And he and I talk about racism, and race relations. And David is my dear friend. David and I are like, that's my dude. So it's like, I don't understand racism. Get it, because I'm a victim of it. Like, I'm Black, so but I love everybody, and I know that they're good white people. I know good white people. I know a lot of good white people. And I think these kind of interactions, Eric, are so important, because we have to show other people how to do it. So the pushback that I get, I feel like these are people that don't have relationships with Black people, authentic, genuine relationships with people that look different from them. So, I mean, I hear it all from, you know, you weren't a slave. I mean, you know, we owe you nothing, and just saying ugly things to me. And I trust me, I'm getting it all. And, you know, I just wish that, you know, we weren't so many parts of white America is so isolated and so cut off from the beauty of other cultures.
Yeah.
All these cultures are so, the Latino culture is rich, the Black culture is rich, you know, the Asian culture is rich. There's so much to learn. I remember I had a campaign event one time, and it was an Asian event, and an older lady, I don't know what it was that we were eating. I ate it. I don't know what the hell I was eating, but I ate it, right? And this Asian lady, and I think it was kind of traditional or maybe cultural, she just picked it up with her hand and she put it in my mouth.
Oh, wow. Right.
I know, right? I chewed it up and I swallowed it, but I knew that it was her way of saying, it was endearing. Like, she wanted to feed me. And It wasn't that it was very endearing, and I felt so loved, and it was such a great event. And so it's sad to me, going back to your original question, that I do get this kind of pushback, and we're at a place where, you know, we're still fighting a battle that really just, damn it, needs to go away, because we're all people, and we just need to figure out how to make sure that America is representative of all of us.
Yeah. The thing that you know, obviously I have a different experience, and I have white privilege and male privilege and all that stuff, right? I get all that stuff, right? But the thing that gives me hope, you know, is you know, generationally, like you said, you know, hopefully we're more woke generationally, right? You look at the arc of gay rights over the last 40 years, right? And it's definitely making progress. And you look at younger generations, and the melting pot is happening, right? There's less divisions racially. So I think some older generations just need to yeah, I don't want to say it that directly, but,
I know they have to die out. Like, I mean, just being honest, like that, those generations have to be gone because this generation is much more accepting. Like my son came home the other day with another tattoo. I have absolutely 0 tattoos, right? And I'm like, I don't get this generation. Why do y'all have to like put tattoos all over your body? I don't understand. But this is their thing. This is their thing.
Yeah, and I think I mean, just from my old white guy perspective, I think that progress is happening, right? I always go back to Dr. King saying, I may not get there with you to the promised land, but I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen it, right? Like, I'm not going to get there, but the generations behind me, March for Our Lives, Sunrise Movement, those kids will get there. That's the promised land, right? At least that's my hope, So, but let's move on to some other policies, right? And these are all connected, right? So you're running for Georgia Senate. And before I get too much further, you said you had a weekly show. Your website is tamaraforgeorgia.com. You don't take corporate PAC money. You are a true progressive. So she's funded by the people. So if you're watching this and you can throw her $27 or $7 or $107, or you can go to our website and volunteer from, assuming you do phone banking, text banking, the whole thing. So, so go help her out. And I'll mention that again before we go, of course. But let's move on to some of the policy things, and I'll just kind of prompt you and let you go, right? Okay. So women's rights. What's your position on what are your policy proposals?
So if you're not a woman, how dare you speak for me and any other woman in this country? This is my body, and you have no right to tell me what to do with my body, period.
And also closing the pay gap as well, right? So it's disproportionate racially, but also on gender lines. I'm assuming that's something you would work for as well. Absolutely. We can do what you can do, and we should be paid what you are paid. Absolutely. Right on. And just the general wage, raising the minimum wage, that's something you support as well?
Oh, absolutely. When you have Americans that have to work 2 and 3 jobs, these little gig jobs, just to make it, we're absolutely doing something wrong. And getting, this stimulus money, I think, showed America these people were able to collect unemployment, and they did better with collecting unemployment and getting extra money than they do going to work for 40 hours. We have a problem. Yeah. How about, let's see what else we got. Medicare for all. You are a proponent of Medicare for all. So if you were in the Senate, you would be an ally with Bernie and whoever else was pretending to be supporting Medicare for all at that point in time. Absolutely. So I was on the campaign trail around Macon, Georgia, and fell in a hole and twisted my ankle. When I fell, I knew I was hurt. I mean, my ankle did something I had never felt before. Came back home, went to the orthopedic. Now, mind you, I am 48, no pre-existing conditions, relatively healthy. My insurance alone is $500 a month. That's just mine. Doesn't include my children. My piece is $500. I get to the orthopedic. I need a brace. The brace is not covered. I have to pay for this brace out of pocket. Get to the desk. She tells me, you did not meet your deductible. Now you have to pay for this visit. So when I left that office, I had to give them $300. I'm like, I've already paid my insurance for the month. I can't even see the doctor. I got to still give you $300. Wow. Yes. So absolutely, I support Medicare for all. Right on. And that these issues, the wages, Medicare for all, right? Free public colleges and universities, you're a proponent for. Canceling student debt, you're a proponent for. These also, go a long way to what we were talking about, right? It's not direct reparations, but, those things, those things disproportionately affect communities of color. So if there is a level baseline, it won't disproportionately affect them negatively anymore, right? It kind of gives us
a bit of a level starting point. If we all have Medicare for all, we all can go to, trade school or whatever, right? Can you talk about that, the benefits of that, sort of intersectionally?
Yeah. So yeah, when you talk about going to trade school, so that is where, that was my bread and butter. Like I went to a beauty school, right? I went to a beauty school and came out and did services and was able to start my own small business. I was able to hire people. That is where I like to see so much opportunity. When this PPP money came down the pike and these loans, these grants, all this funding with COVID, small businesses didn't get this. They didn't get this money because a lot of these people, particularly in my industry, weren't even able to get unemployment because they operate on such a small scale. But that is the backbone of this country. And how do we make sure that we support small businesses and trades and people shouldn't be riddled with debt. To get an education, to go to school and come out and you it's like the money you make, now you got to pay off this debt for 20 years or more. Right. You never come out of the hole. So we have to do better with, education should be free in this country. If you want a prosperous nation, healthcare and education is a right, not a privilege.
Right on. And investing your using your tax dollars to invest into your communities and stuff like that, right? Rather than killing people in other countries and whatnot. Let me ask kind of a horse race question. Like I kind of joked at the beginning that there are like 72 candidates, but there are a lot. It's probably 15 or 16 or so, right? There's
21.
21. Wow. Right. So there are probably establishment candidates that are getting the money and the party support and stuff like that. There's a bunch of terrible Republicans. We don't even need to recognize them. But how are you breaking out in the field? Like, what's your I don't want to call it tactical, but like, how are you reaching, the vast constituency of the state of Georgia with your message?
So for last month, I was able to travel around the state of Georgia in a small little RV. And those of you that are interested, it's on Tamara Johnson-Shealey on YouTube. I have these cute little videos from my travels around the state, but I traveled 3,600 miles around the state of Georgia. And just meeting people. And I know we're in the midst of a pandemic. I know it, but I promise you, I wore my mask, I wore my gloves. I tried to social distance as best I could, but I could not campaign. I could not get on the ground because what's happening with the bigger establishment candidates, they have money to buy media. They're doing the Bloomberg on us. They're buying up all the media. They're everywhere. But those of us that are smaller grassroots candidates, we have to stay on the ground. We got to get on the ground. We have to move around. So that has been my strategy, and it's making sure that people know who I am. Passing that flyer from sticking my arm out as far as I can, or waving signs. I've been doing everything that candidates do, even though like I said, we have to be safer doing it in this COVID season. But we still got to do grassroots campaigning. There's no way around it when you don't have millions, and these candidates have millions of dollars and they're buying up all the media. So broadcasts like this, Eric, and what you're doing, I am so appreciative and so thankful that you gave me an opportunity to share my candidacy.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to you anytime. I think I could talk to you all day, every day, and not get win, lose, or draw. I'd love to have you back on. I heard you. I don't necessarily want to speak ill of somebody, but you mentioned Mike Bloomberg, right? And Stacey Abrams, in 2018 was a big story, and she was a progressive for a minute there, but then she started taking Bloomberg money, and her position softened and so forth. Can you talk about just what you see in the state, with constituents? Like, do they feel that she turned their back on them, or what's the ground feeling of her, in terms of taking that money and shifting politically? And I'm going to say this, and I might regret it, but she's somewhat tokenized, right?
She was never a progressive, Eric.
Right.
She was never a progressive. She is not a progressive. Never, ever was she a progressive.
Right.
And I hate that people try to steal that from true progressives. I hate when I see people that are not progressive and they steal the title. It makes me so angry because I know you're not a progressive.
It's maddening, right?
It is. Like, how dare you try to put this cape on and be one of us when you're not? just to try to galvanize a base that is not your base. And do you think we're stupid and we don't see past it? Because we're not. We see past it.
Right.
When she took that money, it was disheartening.
Yeah. Well, she's a party insider darling. So, I mean, I don't know what the future holds for her, but, you know, I mean, you know, credit where credit's due on the voting rights issues, and she certainly has elevated that. You know, and in fact, speaking of that, again, one of those terrible things. I'm not trying to like poo-poo on Georgia.
Bring me in. You know, bring me in. Come on, Eric. I'm here for it. Look, right, just remember, you're talking to a candidate who's lost 3 times. I have nothing to lose.
Yeah, that's awesome, right?
I just tell the truth, right? And just let the chips fall where they may.
You know, let me give you a compliment on that as well. Like, you know, if you run 3 times and you, like I said at the beginning, kind of jokingly, nevertheless, she persisted, and you haven't sold out, that is like, what more indicator do you need that, you know, Tamara is not going to sell out, right? You're not going to suddenly take Mike Bloomberg money or, you know, a giant check from Lockheed Martin or whoever, right? Yeah. So I was going to ask about voter suppression in Georgia, right? I'm not trying to shit on Georgia or whatever, but they're also known for voter suppression, right? So, you know, tell me what you have seen or heard kind of from the front lines. I know there's voter roll purges. You know, paint that picture for those of us not in Georgia. What's that look like?
Faulty machines, locations that don't have power. Like, for some reason, the power is out. The longest lines that you can't even imagine, and there's 3 machines inside. The tactics are just unbelievable. You have a predominantly Black district, and you know people are and you have a handful of machines. And then I live up here in this really white district, and we got more machines, and nobody's waiting. You can walk in and pick one. Right. Oh yeah, wow. Oh yeah.
So what can be done about that? You know, I mean, recognizing it is the first thing. I mean, it's a Republican-controlled state, right? The House and the Senate and the governor.
It's a trifecta, absolutely. Yeah. And so what we have to do is overwhelm the system, whether it be voting by mail. We just have to overwhelm the system, and we have to now. Here's where Democrats get it wrong. They do stuff like, well, people died for you to have the right to vote. And this is what they say to young people. People, you know, people lost their lives. They try to guilt or shame them into voting. That does not work in Georgia. That doesn't work, I don't think, nationally, but I know it's not working in Georgia. When you talk to these young people, you have to give them something that they, you know, feel like there's a reason for them to go vote. And that's why I think my candidacy has been so exciting to a lot of younger people, because I do talk about tangibles. You know, that's a hashtag that's been on social media, tangibles 2020. This younger generation understands that, and this is what comes from the ADOS movement, that voting is an exchange. You don't just get this vote for free anymore. And Black America has given this vote away for free for so long. We just show up and vote, and we vote for the D. Like in my race here in the Senate District 40, they showed up and voted for her, the lady that ran against me, and they didn't know who she was. Just because she has a D behind her name. And I've had people across the, you know, people say to me, "Are you a Democrat, right?" I'm like, let's look at the candidates. Like, I want us to get beyond party politics. Deep dive into who these candidates are. So we're getting it wrong with messaging. We're getting it wrong with how we engage voters. I think the Democratic Party gets it wrong. And it pisses me off in this state, Eric, that if you go to our website for the Democratic Party, you should be able to go to that website, right? And you should be able to say, well, who's running for the U.S. Senate? You should see all the candidates and links to their websites, right? Who's running in this district? Who's running? You don't have a state party that's invested in the win. I've had a county party. We have a county party here, Eric, that has asked us, and I get it, because they need support to get us out there as far as candidates, but they're asking the candidates to contribute money. I'm like, well, damn, the Democratic Party nationally, I'm sure, sends money to the state. Why the hell is the county parties not getting some sort of funding? They get no money from the state. The county parties are to their own. Y'all figure it out. Oh. And to have a state Democratic Party that doesn't even like have every single candidate in every single race on the website is ridiculous.
Yeah. Not to get conspiratorial or whatever, but it's probably not by accident, right? It's it's, there are disenfranchised voters, right? And the status quo is protected by keeping those disenfranchised voters disenfranchised, right? Sadly, directly. So how do you, as a candidate, motivate a disenfranchised voter? They maybe they voted for Barack Obama, who ran as a progressive, but then governed as a neoliberal, right? Just normal corporate like, how do you get them, like, to be convinced of your authenticity rather than just voting D if you feel like it? You mentioned tangibles. Somewhere in all that word salad, there was a question.
So how do we get these people to vote? You know what I do? I never talk before. I always, whenever I meet a voter, I let them talk to me. I want them to talk to me more. I want to hear, and I need to figure out where this person is. And I'm trying to meet them wherever they are to get them to the polls. So I do more listening, and that's something that I'm fine-tuned for that, because as a little girl, Eric, I was so shy. People would talk to me and I would not talk. I was so freaking shy. And as I've gotten older, I've come into myself, but I was so shy. And as a nail tech, my job, and as somebody in the beauty and barber industry, because I did nails everybody for 18 years. So as my job was to listen. So I'm really, really good at listening. And I tend to listen to the voter and listen to people. When I meet them first, I'm gonna get them to talk more to me so that I can meet them wherever they are. And that's how I engage. And that's how people, I know that's kind of like my little formula, and it works for me because it works for my personality.
Right on. Yeah, that's great. Again, crowded field. Any chance of, like, would they possibly have a debate with all these folks? Any chatter of that?
I don't believe at the same time what they have, and we don't even have debates. We have forums. They're so nice. We have forums, Eric, and these forums have been very, like, choppy. Like, it may be 4 or 5 of us at a time, and I don't know how they're selecting which ones to bring together. So these forums have been just those, and the ones that are Democratic forums, it's been all of us that are the Democrats. There's supposed to be 8 of us, but 2 of the names on the ballot, Eric, we don't know who the hell they are. So it's really 6 of us.
Right on. So the party insider candidates, I mean, who are they, and why are they terrible?
Well, there's Ed Tarver and there's Raphael Warnock. Let me tell you why Raphael Warnock is terrible. He's terrible because, first of all, he stands in that pulpit of Dr. King. He's the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church. That's Dr. King's church here in Georgia.
Right.
So he's terrible to me and to Black America because he stands in the pulpit of Dr. King and he does not speak specifically to the issues of Black America. He doesn't speak boldly. He has no agenda for Black people specifically. And Black people are asking for something now. They're asking for something. I just told you it's an exchange. Voting is an exchange. That's part of the ADOS movement. And we're asking for something. Raphael has nothing specific for Black people. So that's why he's terrible. There's Matt Lieberman. His daddy was Joe Lieberman. We don't know who he is. I don't know if he's a Democrat or a Republican. He's a nice guy, but I'm not sure if he's Democrat or Republican. Right. And then there's Ed Tarver, who he's a nice guy too, but he speaks about, that Obama, he was appointed by Obama to do something, and he rides that. So to me, I don't even think that's enough for where we are today in this moment and what we're seeing happening around us. People want more than that from politicians. People expect more than that from their leaders. Yeah.
Are you seeing, you were a Bernie supporter in 2016. We talked about a little bit before we jumped on here. The thing that was elevating him was, the policy, like you said, right at the top, the policy is giving voters a reason to wake up, leave their home, go out and vote, right? And that generated a movement, right? And then that inspired the next candidates to run. And, it was all this movement politics, right? So, in Georgia, again, if the voters are disenfranchised, it's not going to come from the party down. It has to come from the bottom up, right? So, how successful, or, what are you seeing reflected back at you in hopes of building a similar movement and driving out the vote to elevate a candidate like yourself?
Yeah. So here's where I think Bernie just missed it. Like I was so waiting on Bernie to get it right. Like I was like, come on, Bernie, come on, Bernie. Bernie when South Carolina went for Joe Biden and the Black vote really drove that. It was the older generation of Black people that did it.
Right.
Bernie left my generation and younger generations on the table. He left us on the table because we would have rocked with Bernie if all he had to do was talk about reparations, talk more specifically about a Black agenda. Give us something, Bernie. Give us something. And he would have had a generation. He would have had, it's enough of us that would have balanced out that older generation of Black people that totally drove Joe to the poll, that drove Joe. He left us on the table. He left us on the table. And I really hope, and I hope that I get to sit next to Bernie. Me and Bernie are going to be best friends. Because he's going to get it right before he leaves there.
Yeah. Have you been following the People's Party at all? The launch of the People's Party with Nina Turner and Cornel West and those folks?
I haven't. I've been on the ground here in Georgia. I'm buried in that. So
what's running a Senate campaign? I apologize, right?
I hadn't seen it.
And you might look into that at some point because it's they're not putting forward candidates in 2021, but they're speaking to exactly the same things you're speaking to. And obviously Nina Turner and Cornel West are superstars. So whatever they say, I'm probably all going to be all in. So I would encourage you to check that out at some point as well. So yeah, so let me just throw it out again. November 3rd, you need some votes, right?
Yes, taking a bold agenda to Washington.
TamaraForGeorgia.com, and you have a weekly show which is there as well, and you cover a lot of really important topics in a unique voice that we all need to go check out. So and like I said, on your website, people can donate, people can volunteer, you have phone banking, you have text campaigns, share this video, share her videos, spread the word. The only way we get authentic public servants like Tamara is by supporting them, right? So a corporate candidate's going to come in and just buy the seat and they're going to throw millions of dollars at it, and that's an endless pool. So unless we have movement oriented politics and we elevate candidates, imagine Tamara in the Senate, like right? Imagine you on the floor, talking about ADOS like that, like
I just can smile and get so excited because I just, I'm so passionate. I love people, and I know this country can get this right. I know we can.
Yeah, and that's back to the reparations thing. Like it's, people say it's the original sin, and I also think indigenous peoples are part of that, right? But like until we resolve that, like Marianne Williamson said, until we resolve that, we can't move forward, right? And it's a deep wound, and there's no movement on it. And Tamara you could be that catalyst for change, if we get you into the Senate. So on that alone, unbought, unbossed, and fighting for something that desperately needs fought for. So I admire you. I admire your resiliency in continuing to run. I admire your platform. Like I said, I love to talk to you anytime, and I wish you the best in November. TamaraForGeorgia.com, go support her. She's a superstar. So
thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Anything that we didn't touch on that you want to touch on, or closing thought or anything?
I think you did it. I just want to say, I'm a proud progressive. I just know we can get this right in this country, and I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my candidacy again. Thank you. Right on. Love it. TamaraForGeorgia.com, November 3rd. Go Votes. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, Tamara. Talk to you again soon. Thank you, Eric. Bye. Bye-bye.